In February of this year, the president of Liberia signed a document called the WASH Compact. Last year, a lot of partners went to Monrovia to develop this compact. The key was that there are 4 strategic areas in this compact that needed to be looked at. But under the very first objective, which is around strengthening the institutional capacity of even the government, there were issues around a couple of national planning documents that needed to come out. The interesting part is that these are actually what drove the government to initiate the mapping project, because if we're going to do an investment plan for 5 years and do a sector strategic plan for 5 years, then it's quite obvious that you cannot be basing your decisions on, figures from the air. It had to be clearly documented facts that you could use, and your planning had to be based on the set of data that you had. So this is exactly where you talk about investment planning for equity, because we were able to see the population distribution around the country, and considering a series of factors, we were able to prioritize where you needed to intervene in terms of building water points in the different areas. This is all just about the SSP, the Sector Strategic Plan, and all the different documents that have been able to come out of using water point mapping data. We've been able to do something very amazing with this. The sector investment plan has a number of layers, quite technical layers, and what the team would normally refer to in Liberia as the SIP team, because it's like you say in the sector investment plan team, they conducted a couple of training where they've linked this investment plan to a GIS system, so that if, for example, coverage actually drops, you get a map that automatically changes with those figures, which is just linked to an Excel file. And then if you are able to go beyond that particular target, then obviously the codings of the map would change. So they've been able to do a lot of training using the same data. So it's really been a tool for planning. In most of what has happened, it's been a very key tool. For monitoring and evaluation, we've been able to also do the same thing. I mean, if water points have actually broken down and we receive this information, and INGOs are still working in those areas, so we've requested them to submit annual work plans. And if you are still working in an area where water points broke down like 2 years ago and we mapped them, and you've still not rehabilitated these, then we'll raise some issues and ask you some very hard questions about what's really happening. So, I mean, for monitoring evaluation, this has been the key. And most of our county coordinators never had this information before. So this has been almost like, for them, it's like, wow, we have our, they call it their backup, their hard drive. They say, if we didn't have this thing, people are going to be working, and we're not going to know what's really happening in this county. But thank God we have the data now. And people have really been changing the way they work in these counties since we produce the data in the hands of the coordinators who are on the ground. So it's supported M&E activities also. This is just a funding pipeline for WSS, but we just thought to mention some of the funding activities that will be happening. So, for example, the country assistance strategy of the bank was being developed some 2-3 weeks back, and we've been able to delve into this water point mapping to give them information on access and coverage. We've even been able to give this information to DFID, USAID for their new round of planning for the country portfolio in Liberia. So these are some of the things that we got out of there. Now, you pretty much heard a lot about what Flow does. And Manuel actually gave you a long talk about that. And I'm happy that you gave him most of the questions around Flow, so I don't get any, because he got everything already. But it's good that he came in first, so thank you. But yeah, I just summed this up, like what it does. It's very simple. We used the Vodafone 801, I think 807, and the training for this was very short. We took like 3 days to train the TOTs, and we took like another week to do 150 persons. That's in three different areas, centers, and we did a 1 week of test run to see what sort of problems we have, so that we didn't want people going on the field, and we had a lot of unanswered questions. So we actually did a 1 week test. So people went out, mapped, came back with lots of questions. We tried to solve some of them. Some of them were quite basic. I mean, people were asking us questions about there are certain times where the brightness on the screen of this thing goes off, and just basic questions were coming. But yeah, these are exactly what you get out of Flow. You get a GPS location of the survey object. Here, Manuel explained exactly how he's been able to use that, and you submit this data automatically. And I want you to know that it's done via a network, which I will talk about. So I was tempted to put submit data automatically, but then it's good to tell you how it goes. It solved three things for us, basically, from Liberia. I know that before using Flow, all of my field exercises are carried out. We're done with working papers and maybe a GPS Garmin 32, and big boxes of. So even if it started to rain and I had a piece of paper, that it gets wet. So when I saw Flow, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I mean, I could just pull in a plastic bag and hide it from the rain and come back. And so yeah, I mean, it's easy to use on the ground. You have all functions in one. And this data transmission, I mean, the way it's done is like very good for people who want to monitor teams. With this working papers, you really don't know whether the guy is even working. You don't even know whether he's on the field working. For all I know, there were instances where people went on the field, sat down in a small village, called for some palm wine, and ate some chicken in the village and just wrote in the sheets. And so, like, you were receiving data that wasn't very accurate. Some of the information was pretty much cooked. But you could really use the way in which data is transmitted. You like see points coming up on the map, because every time they map a point, they like submit it. So you just see these bumps appearing, on your screen. It's quite, interesting to be sitting there looking at all of those things. And the key one is that your overview map gets automatically created and updated, but updated during the time of the survey. So this is not like after 5 years and then updated. No, but during the period of the survey, you get your maps to be updated, because if you receive 10 points today, tomorrow you receive another 20 for the period of 3-4 months, you really don't have to do a lot here. Then I just want to talk a little bit about challenges we had. Yeah, we had all functions in one, but it's not really for heavy use in the field. You can use it in the field, yeah, but you don't want to go on because of several reasons. Battery life. I remember we had to purchase over 4,000 packs of Kodak batteries and buy external chargers, because there were places where mappers were going where they don't have electricity. So what it meant was that you needed to provide a means of powering this battery. So that was a key issue for us. I talked about screen brightness. And yeah. So pretty much you receive calls from the field and somebody tells you, well, I got to this water point, but my entire screen is blank. I didn't see anything. And you really had to walk them through, go to settings, go to display, just draw that thing And these were small challenges, but I don't see that as key. I mean, there's no way you can do this. I think it's the way the phones were set up. If it ran below certain power, then it ran into power saving mode or something. So that was a key. And yeah, there were a few remaining bugs. There were instances where we really mapped, and at the end of the day, we didn't get any submission from this particular team. So what was the problem? They're like, we're sending the data, but we're not getting the data. So what was happening there? Maybe the tech guys would talk about it later, but we didn't understand. So we had to go and remap with new devices. So it's like we had to take those ones and it's like, let's keep it, give you new ones, go and redo, which meant that you have to give him like everything over, So it was good. Yeah. And this is very key. If in the absence of mobile coverage, since in fact we're using the SIM cards and using the if it's not universal, you won't get data. So I was just explaining to Peter how at one point in time we really had to be going in the field, take out the SD cards from these mobile phones, download them on our PCs, run back to the city, send it to, there was a tech guy from Gallatin who was like just waiting for these sort of things. And then we'll go back in the field because people were not submitting. And sometimes if they ran out of airtime, then it makes it a lot worse because then we had to really be there collecting the data. You don't want the whole team coming to Monrovia, so you have to go there, download, and then come back. So it was something that was pretty much challenging for us. Yeah. Systems of updating. We've not had a way around it. So 2 months back, I got I've been talking about this for a long time, that we're having difficulties with updating. So I think Joseph Pierce from Water Aid called me up and like, can I come in and do a training using the WaterPoint Macro? Let's see what we get out of that. So yeah, we've not tried it yet, but we want to pilot this, which means that we'll go back to spreadsheets. They've suggested that there's a suggestion that we use the WaterPoint Mapper, which works in this way. You have a GPS device, you have a spreadsheet, you have the Google Earth application. We tried it in a few communities, but then it does not eliminate papers, and that's the whole thing. So if we want to continue with Akvo Flow, then we can be using this as a strategy. But this was sort of a desperate move because we're running out of time in terms of updating our maps. And we think that by the time all of these people you saw using this data come back to us for the next round of updated information, we need to be ready to give them some new things. We can't tell them that we have 10,000 points anymore. So we've been doing some thinking around that. You can find this data on the WASH website. Yeah, go there and you zoom in a little bit. All these points will come out with the attributes, talk about it. You can actually zoom into individual points. You can know where they are with the photos. So for me, I'm having photos of water points and not farmers, So you got there. You can pretty much do all of that. Thank you very much.